Chapter 436, Ruin His Plans. Jinrong looked at Moson, seeming gritting his teeth. He had finally touched his wife today, but was interrupted again. Yo, master, are you alright? Moson asked with drooping eyelids. Do I look like I'm alright? Let's go and meet that old fox, Jinrong said impatiently. His opportunity was gone, so he wanted to pin the blame on Qin Hao. In the conference room, Qin Hao was pacing back and forth. Boss Qin, what brings you to my company today? Jinrong sat down, crossed his legs, and asked. I heard that Boss Mo came back from a business trip and specially came to take a look. Qin Hao sat down and smiled weakly. Just came to take a look? Jinrong was displeased. If he had only come back to take a look, then he had ruined his plans for nothing. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Of course, there's a small problem too, and I wanted to discuss it with you. Previously, Mr. Mo had a deal with me, and both of us have signed a contract. I have even transferred the money, but I haven't received a reply from him. Hence, I'm here today to ask for an answer. When can we start work? Qin Hao said evilly. Sheng Li had signed a contract with him. Without Sheng Li, he could only look for Jinrong. You mean the real estate project? Jinrong thought about it. Previously, there was indeed a collaboration with the Qin family, but it was initiated by Sheng Li himself and had nothing to do with him. Fortunately, Boss Mo remembers. I'll have to trouble you to approve the contract so that the project can proceed smoothly. Qin Hao seemed anxious. Jinrong rejected him without hesitation. This is the contract my uncle signed with you. It didn't go through my approval, so I shouldn't be responsible for this. You should find my uncle. When Jinrong said this, Qin Hao's expression changed. Mr. Mo is from the Mo family, after all. What do you mean by this? Are you trying to break the contract? You'll have to pay a large sum of money if you do. Qin Hao was anxious. To be honest, Boss Qin, he has a deal with the Tan family too. Adding yours, the compensation will be 6 times. However, this matter didn't receive my permission, so if you have any questions, please look for my legal department. They will give you an answer. Boss Qin has been in the business world for so many years. You should know the rules of the contract. I won't accompany you if you want to benefit from it. I remember that you said before that opening a business is to earn money, not to lose money. Jinrong had thought it through and didn't want to cooperate with them. If they needed to pay the penalty for breaking the contract, Sheng Li would go to court. After all, he wouldn't be responsible for it. Are you really going to go back on your word? When has my Qin family ever been bullied before? I admit that the previous matter was done by one of my subordinates and it was inappropriate, but I don't think that the incident should involve your personal feelings. You can't take revenge on me because of that. I put so much effort into this project and you're saying you're not going to do it? Who is going to be responsible for the money I'm losing? Qin Hao stood up, his walking step tapping the ground. He was sweating profusely. Boss Qin, you and my uncle are responsible for this, so you should be dealing with him, not me. Also, I can't cooperate with the Qin family using the name of the Mo Corporation. I didn't accept this arrangement. Mo-san, see him out. Jinrong stood up, straightening his clothes, and walked out of the conference room. Qin Hao chased after him anxiously. Mo Jinrong, you can't bully people like this. Just because you have a big family and business, you bully us outsiders? Boss Qin, I believe you wanted to take advantage of us when you signed a contract, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have signed a contract. You have to talk to the legal department about the details. Boss Qin, this way, please. Jinrong was about to leave when Qin Hao stopped him. Mo-san caught up with them and gestured for him to leave politely. Mo Jinrong. Qin Hao's angry shouts were useless. He could only look for Mo Sheng Li again. He couldn't let this go. Boss Qin, regarding the incident last time, President Mo and the young madam didn't hold you responsible. They just sent you a lawyer's letter. Don't pester them anymore, or else the incident from last time will make you famous in the internet for a little while more, Mo-san said. Who do you think you are? How dare you educate me? Just you wait. Kin Hao didn't stand on ceremony and left after saying those harsh words. Boss Mo, if we don't accept this matter, are we really going to compensate for the 6 times penalty? That's a big sum. Mo-san was worried. There's no need. I didn't sign the deal with him, so the penalty doesn't count. If he wants to sue, let him. Jinran was a little angry. This trivial matter had interrupted his discussion with Anran. He suddenly stared at Mo-san. Don't disturb me with these kinds of things in the future, unless the company is on fire or something. Did you know that you ruined my plans? Mo-san was stunned. Young master, didn't you say that the office romance is prohibited? Are you and the young madam going to... I am the owner of this place, and that prohibition is for the employees, not me. Why do you care about me and Anran? Jinran was really unwilling. The fire in his heart hadn't subsided. I wouldn't dare, but has young master really given up and found Zero? Mo-san hadn't heard the name Zero in a long time. I've let her treat my illness. As for the rest, it's up to fate. There were only some people he couldn't find no matter how hard he tried. Will Shang Taiyan's name be hidden from now on? Mo-san asked. Jinran looked at him curiously. You have a lot of questions today. What do you want to say? Mo-san stammered. Nothing. But recently I've met a beautiful woman. You're the only thing I have around me that I can brag about to her. With your disappearance, I didn't even have any topics to talk to her about anymore. You're using my matters to talk to beautiful women? Do you think it's appropriate? Jinran's identity had always been a secret, and it wouldn't matter if it made public now, but Shang Taiyan couldn't be mentioned as he used that identity for illegal matters. It's not appropriate, but I finally met a woman, so I have to catch her, right? But I'm poor. Can you lend me your Bentley? Mo-san circled around him, wanting him to agree so he could show off in a luxury car with a beauty. Jinran directly picked up a Bentley key from his drawer and threw it onto the table. Go ahead, you'll be held responsible if it's scratched or malfunctions. Mo-san nodded excitedly and left. Chapter 437, Agreeing to the Marriage. Because of what happened last time, all the major websites were reporting about Li Shishi. The female celebrities who were banned or bullied by her in the past had long been waiting to see her make a fool of herself. Li Shishi couldn't defend herself, so she could only carry her bag and sneak out of the hospital. Tan Shilin had made it clear in the entertainment industry that he wouldn't allow anyone to give her any roles or any endorsement deals. He wanted her to disappear from the entertainment industry completely. Boss Tan, I told you they were greedy for your money, unlike me, who hasn't had any status in years. Shouldn't you give me some reward? Jiang Mei shawshawed over in a short skirt and asked. Tan Shilin was in a bad mood, and he pulled Jiang Mei into his arms. What do you women want? Is it not enough for me to give you money and a status? You greedy people. He pinched Jiang Mei's face hard. You didn't give me a title, but I don't care. Reward me with a bag for the sake of my help this time. I've taken a liking to a new design recently, Jiang Mei said. Tan Shilin threw out a card without hesitation. There isn't a pin on this card. You can use it just by swiping it. In his eyes, the women around him were all people who loved his money. He was just greedy for their beauty and bodies. They each took what they needed. Jiang Mei took the card and walked out happily. Just then, his phone rang. When he saw that it was his father, he immediately answered it respectfully. Dad, what's the matter? What thing has troubled you to give me a call? We can discuss it when I'm back. Tan Shilin forced a smile, being very well behaved. Old Master Tan's tone was grim. Tan Shilin, are you in charge of the project with Sheng Li? The Mo Corporation's contract termination agreement has been sent to me, so how much are you going to hide from me? How can you cooperate with him? Don't you know that Jin Rong is the CEO of the Mo Corporation? If you overstep your authority to agree to a corporation, will the contract work? Are you out of your mind because of a woman? You're still throwing money into this? The Tan family will be finished if I hand it over to you. From now on, you will not be responsible for anything in the Tan family, and I will leave everything to Siwen. Old Master Tan hung up after he finished speaking. Tan Xilin didn't even have time to say anything, as he was already furious. The scolding from Old Master was simply adding oil to the fire. He pressed the intercom. Lan Yaxin, come here. His tone was harsh, making Yan Yaxin shiver. She was reminded of the last time she was whipped, and her wounds had yet to heal. What was he going to do this time? Yaxin opened the door fearfully and walked into the office. Tan Xilin looked at her coldly. It's all because of your sister. The Mo Corporation actually wants to terminate the contract with me. Your sister made me upset, so as her sister, you have to help her pay the debt. Tan Xilin's gaze was a little fierce, making Yaxin shiver. She suppressed her tears and choked. I'm not your punching bag, and I'm not here to help my sister pay her debts. If worse comes to worse, I'll quit this job. Tan Xilin suddenly stood up and laughed loudly. Oh, Yaxin, you're so naive. Do you think you can just come over and get an internship certificate? Let's not talk about work first. Have you forgotten that I still have a bunch of photos of you? You can choose not to work, but the moment you step out of this company, I will release all the photos online. Those disgusting photos of Lan Anran's sister will be posted on the internet, and you might even become famous. Yaxin clenched her fist tightly, hating Anran to the core. She was the one who caused all of this pain. How is it? Have you thought it through? Tan Xilin had written all the hatred in his heart on his fate. He had to transfer his pain. When will you finish what you promised me? Mo Junrong is back. I don't want to be your toy. My goal is Mo Junrong. Yaxin looked at him angrily. When she got what she wanted, the first person to suffer would be Tan Xilin. I said I would help you, but you have to work hard too. I gave you so many chances previously, but you didn't succeed in any of them. I'm thinking about whether I should give you another chance. Xilin smiled evilly. He had a photo of the silly girl, and actually didn't need to be threatened by her anymore, but he needed Mo Shengli's cooperation more. In that case, later on he wouldn't be a threat anymore. Are you going back on your word back then? We agreed back then that you could do it, so why didn't you? Don't worry, I'm not a person who goes back on my word. I've said it before, as long as you listen to me obediently, you can have whatever you want. If you harbor any intentions of rebellion, then don't blame me for having been merciless. Tan Xilin seemed to have noticed her dissatisfaction, but she couldn't have a choice, so she could only accept it. Just then, Yaxin's phone rang again. She picked up the phone with tears in her eyes and saw that the number was her mother. She wiped her tears and picked up the call as though nothing had happened. Mom, I'm at work. Let's talk after work. Yaxin was just about to hang up when Xu Yanshan chided her. You brat, have you thought about the Zhu family? They called me and said that if he still didn't agree to the marriage, he would have to call it off. In 1 month, it'll be his silly son's birthday. They want to arrange the marriage on his birthday, so I agreed on your behalf. Tomorrow they will send a dowry. After work, buy 2 sets of good clothes, then use them to see your in-laws tomorrow. Xu Yanshan's words were full of happiness. How can you make a decision for me? I don't want to marry that fool. Since you're the one who agreed, you can go ahead and marry him. Have you ever cared about your daughter? Have you asked me if I'm willing? Are you going to marry your daughter off and sell off your only daughter? Am I not as important as that stinky monkey? Yaxin cried aggrievedly. Why didn't I ask for your opinion? It's been so long and you're still unwilling to give me an answer. This marriage is going to happen soon, so how can I let it go? You should have just resigned and come back to get married. Don't embarrass me outside and affect the marriage. Zhu-kun may be a fool, but the Zhu family is a respectable family. Don't embarrass the Lan family and the Zhu family. Xu Yanshan hung up, and Yaxin had no choice. She sat on the sofa and cried. Tan Xilin walked over with a smile. Chapter 438, luring her over. Instead of marrying that fool, why didn't you follow me? If you're willing to marry my woman, I'm willing to give you a title. But you have to be clear about one thing. You are the young lady of the Tan family, not my wife. I can't just have one woman. You are in charge of making old Master Tan happy and giving birth to a chubby boy for me. The Tan family and the Mo family aren't that far apart. After you marry me, you can still flaunt your abilities in front of Ayn Rand and live better than her. No matter how good Jinrong is, you might not be able to see him or feel him. Even if you married into the family, he might not necessarily like you. So why suffer such grievances? Tan Xiling caressed her shoulders comfortably. Yaxin flung his hand away and sobbed. You don't understand. I just want to see her suffer more than me. I want her to suffer under my hands. I hope you will remember your promise to me. It'll be good for you and for me. She ran out in tears. In Yaxin's house, Yanshan, what are you doing is inappropriate. No matter what, you have to get Yaxin to agree to it. What you're going to do is backfire. I know that the child is better than you. She is amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. Zashimi was worried. I'm her mother. Would I harm her? Back then, she despised Jinrong, which is why she ended up like this. There is still some remedy, but she isn't willing. Her brain is really damaged. If I had another option, or if I had another child, I wouldn't be so worried. The Zhu family called me and gave me the ultimatum. The marriage is about to be ruined. How could we miss it? Yaxin made one mistake before. She can't make another one. Tingy is still waiting to rely on his daughter to make a windfall. Shi Yanshan was overjoyed. She sat on the sofa. How long has it been since you visited Tingy? I think we should discuss this with him. After all, it's his daughter's husband. He definitely has to look over it first. Sashimi hadn't seen her son in a long time and wanted to talk to him about her granddaughter's marriage. Shi Yanshan thought about it and agreed. Even if he is in prison, he had to know about his daughter's marriage. Let's visit Tingy tomorrow. Tingy hasn't been in prison for such a long time. The days must have passed by so quickly. Sashimi sighed. Mom, the weather is neither hot nor cold. Why are you knitting a sweater? Tingy has been afraid of the cold since he was a child. Whenever the weather gets cooler, he'll shiver from it. He is old and has arthritis. The weather is a little cold, so I'm knitting a sweater for him so that he can wear it in the winter. Sashimi sighed as she knitted. Mom, how much pensions do you have left? I mainly want to buy some things for Tingy. There isn't anything good in prison. I need to bring some things that will nourish his body. He is too weak. I'm afraid he can't stand that kind of life. Shi Yanshan really missed Tingy. Sashimi put down the yarn in her hand, turned around, took out her bank book, took out her reading glasses, and carefully counted the money in it. My pension is about 4,000 to 5,000 yuan this month. In addition to the pension from Ting Yang, Sashimi calculated carefully and her face gradually turned dark. This is a final thing. The retirement money he's given me is lesser and lesser. In the past, he could transfer at most hundreds of thousands, but now he's only transferring 1,000 yuan. He's eating so many delicacies, and yet he's making me eat only chaff and wild herbs. I've raised him in vain. Sashimi was furious when he thought of his son. Ting Yang is too stingy. He has such a big hospital, and yet he only gives you 1,000 yuan. It wouldn't make sense for anyone else either. Even if there are conflicts between you, you are his biological mother. Ting Yang is too much. But in my opinion, the reason why Ting Yang couldn't do such a thing is probably because of Ayn Rand. That girl must have been behind it, Ting Yanshan said furiously. I've resorted to both trickery and self-harm. That girl didn't fall for it, and even implicated Tingy. If it weren't for her, Yaxin wouldn't have to marry a fool. Sashimi complained as resentment grew in her heart. Mom, in my opinion, why don't we play a weak trick and lure Ayn Rand back first before driving a wedge between Jinrong and her? That way, there would be a barrier between the two of them and they would quarrel. You remember what we discussed last time? Shi Yanshan smiled and said, Sashimi suddenly remembered that the last time they were here, they were discussing how to deal with Ayn Rand. You mean that matter? They both laughed, as if thinking of the same thing. But that girl is very shrewd. What if she doesn't take the bait? Sashimi had experienced being taught a lesson the previous few times and was still a little scared at the thought of it. You don't have to worry about it. Tell her and Libro suddenly fell sick, and she'll come over to take a look. That girl is a filial child. She'll definitely come. Chen smiled and said, Since that's the case, let's follow the plan. You arrange for it, because otherwise I'll panic if I see her. With the plan out in sight, out of mind, Zhao Shimi lowered her head and started knitting again. Anran was preparing to go to the research institute. She heard that the research institute was filled with top students, so she couldn't embarrass herself there. She was researching herbs when she received a call from Xu Yanshan. Xu Yanshan's tone was urgent. Anran, hurry and come over. Your mom suddenly fell ill. Anran's heart tightened and she asked calmly, Why is my mom with you? I arranged to meet your mother at home to discuss Yaxin's matter. I just wanted to talk to her and give Yaxin some face. The discussion was going well, but your mother suddenly fell ill. Hurry over. Xu Yanshan hung up anxiously. Anran called her mother skeptically, but there still wasn't a response from the other side of the phone, which made her suspicious. Regardless of the truth, she had to take a look. Xu Yanshan got Zhao Shimi to prepare the food and added some hallucinogens to the food, waiting for Anran to come over. Anran hurried over towards Yushan's house. She saw a sneaky man at the door, pacing back and forth, but he didn't enter the house. The man looked at her one more time before leaving. Anran was worried about her mother, so she didn't think too much about it and directly knocked on Xu Yanshan's door. Mom, I'm here. When Xu Yanshan heard that her target was here, she hurried over to open the door. You child, hurry and come in. After Anran entered, she didn't find her mother at all. Where's my mom? She looked around. Anran, forgive me and Grandma. We lied to you. Your mother isn't here. We did this because we wanted you to have a meal with us to discuss Yaxin's matter. Xu Yanshan locked the door secretly and smiled awkwardly. Chapter 439, Secretly Drugged. Where is my mom? Is she alright? Anran asked anxiously. Your mom doesn't have any problems. Let's sit down and talk. Anran looked at the food on the table and understood that this was a trap. They had planned it. Why did you trick me into coming here? Anran sat down and asked cautiously. These people wouldn't look for her if they were free, and it wouldn't be good if they did. Anran, you should know that my life is tough. My husband is in jail and I only have one daughter. Our family is poor and we don't have much money. I can only hope to marry my daughter into a rich family, but Yaxin seems to be possessed. She just isn't willing. I have no choice. Xu Yanshan started to act pitiful. If you want me to talk to you about Yaxin, you don't have to trick me with my mother. I've tried my best regarding Yaxin. The rest is up to you. There is no point in asking me. Anran smiled faintly as she said, Yes, I know, but Jinrong is the CEO of the Mole Corporation. He can always have a few words with the Zhu family. Let Jinrong talk to the Zhu family. We'll persuade Yaxin. Can you give her a few more days? We know that they are a good family, but Yaxin thinks it's through. We will send her over. Xu Yanshan smiled and poured some wine. Your aunt is right. You and Jinrong are capable. Grandma and I are counting on you. These dishes were personally prepared for by me. Grandma hasn't cooked in years. Have a taste and see whether my skills have deteriorated. Zhao Shimi tried her best to promote the dishes she cooked. Anran looked at the dishes when a sense of disgust welled up in her heart. She smiled. Even if you have forgotten now, back then, you sent me to the countryside when I was a child. I've never eaten the food that you cooked. Besides, Grandma hasn't cooked in so many years, so I'm not sure if I can eat this dish. Anran mocked her deliberately. You brat! She wanted to continue cursing, but was stopped by Xu Yanshan. That's just how your grandma talks. Don't take it to heart. It doesn't matter if you weren't around to try her cooking before, but try this red wine. It's one of your uncle's treasures, and he usually can't bear to drink it. It's said to be from 82. Xu Yanshan smiled. Anna looked at the red wine and smiled. Aunt, did you poison this wine? Xu Yanshan's expression changed, and she took a sip from the glass. Why are you so paranoid? I told you I wanted you to help us say a few words to the Zhu family. It's alright if you aren't willing, but why are you slandering us? Your grandma worked hard to cook, and she served fried food for half a day. It's bad enough that you're not eating, but you're still mocking us. Edmund watched Shi Yanshan drink a mouthful before picking the red wine to savor it in relief. It's your fault for doing such things before. You have the right to make others trust you. Shi Yanshan was at a loss for words. She looked at the girl in front of her angrily, with a smile on her face and hatred in her heart. You brat, you'll get it soon, she thought to herself as she watched Ayn Rand drink the red wine. Ayn Rand felt something amiss the moment she drank it. She studied herbs often, and she was familiar with the taste of the colorless and odorless herbs. Every herb mixed with the wine tasted different, even though they were colorless and odorless. This bottle of red wine was probably semi-sweet and had a slightly sweet scent when drunk, but it was bitter in her mouth. It should have been the taste of medicine and wine combined. Were these two people drugging her? She pretended not to know and drank it, using her other hand to seal her acupuncture point. Your wine doesn't seem very nice. I don't think it's from 82. Shi Yanshan smiled awkwardly. I don't understand these things either, but I heard that it was quite expensive. Since you're here to eat, it means that you'll help me with my request. Of course I have to help, since you asked me. I won't be eating. I have something to do and will leave first. Adrian stood up, wanting to leave. Henry, you haven't had your meal. Grandma worked hard to cook it. Isn't it a little pity to let it go to waste? Shi Yanshan was a little anxious. Did she notice something? I'm not eating. I'll go back first. I couldn't get through to Mom's phone, so I'm anxious. The moment Ayn Rand walked out, she felt dizzy. Even though she sealed her acupuncture point, it could only slow down the effects of the medicine. Shi Yanshan sent Ayn Rand out and followed behind, afraid that she wouldn't achieve her goal. Auntie, there's no need to send me off. You can go back first. I can handle myself. She turned around and smiled. She wanted to see what these two old women were up to. Ayn Rand felt dizzy, and she tried hard to control her consciousness to maintain it. Left with no choice, she could only stumble as she took a silver needle from her bag and inserted it into her acupuncture point. She abruptly pulled it out and let out some blood, which energized her. She pretended to fall onto the ground. Shi Yanshan summoned the man from behind. Hurry, she's fainted. She spoke to the man behind her. The man hurried forward and looked at Ayn Rand lustfully. He had small eyes and a face full of freckles. He wasn't as tall as Shi Yanshan and was slightly fat. He carried Ayn Rand with difficulty. This girl is mine today. Will she take revenge on me after she wakes up? He asked. He had never seen such a pretty girl, and it seemed he was lucky today. Don't worry, she won't. Let me remind you, she is rich and powerful. You should only take a few photos. I can't control your other actions anyways. You can send the photos to me after you're done. Shi Yanshan smiled and turned around. Sashimi was excited when they returned. How is it? It's done. The person is a beggar that I picked off the streets. I treated him with a meal and even gave him a set of clothes. I've given him such a beautiful girl for nothing. He will be sensible. It's a pity that girl has such a silly appearance, but it ended up benefiting a beggar. How should I sow discord between Jinrong and her later? Shi Yanshan smiled and said, My granddaughter-in-law sure is something. I can't let Ting Young know about this, or he might not recognize me as his mother, Zashimi reminded her. Don't worry, how would Ting Young know about this? I'll act pretentious and find that girl after that beggar is done. Then I'll ridicule her. Chapter 440, he cheated? Don't let anything go wrong. That girl is very shrewd. Sashimi was scared just thinking about it. Don't worry, there definitely won't be a problem. That beggar hasn't touched a woman in many years. This time he won't let go of such a beautiful girl. Shi Yanshan smiled happily. Ayn Rand was taken to a hotel by the man. He gently placed her on the bed and savored his prey. It had been several years since he touched a woman, and this was the first time he had seen such a beautiful woman. He just wanted to admire her. Ayn Rand pretended to be unconscious and laid on the bed. She wanted to see what this man was up to. The man suppressed his urges and laid down beside her. He took out his phone and took a few photos with her. He didn't dare to touch Ayn Rand, afraid that she would break if he did. Her skin was too pale. Just as he was about to send the photos to Shi Yanshan, Ayn Rand endured the dizziness, got up from the bed, and snatched the man's phone. Who are you? What are you trying to do? Although she had controlled her acupuncture point and released some blood, the effects were still strong. She was confused and a little dazed. The man, however, was a little surprised to see her awake. Didn't that woman drug her? How can she still stand up so soberly? He couldn't hold back his inner desires any longer and pounced on Ayn Rand. "Beauty, come here and let me love you." The man continued to speak vulgarities. Ayn Rand shook her head. She had to maintain her clarity at all times. She lowered her head and deleted the photos from the man's phone. But when she looked up and saw the man rushing towards her, she immediately turned to open the door and escape. But the man was not to be trifled with. He immediately followed after. "Girl, where are you going? It's your blessing to accompany me for a few days." The man grabbed her arm, wanting to pull her back. "I don't want it. Let go." Ayn Rand flung his hand away and ran forward unsteadily. She wasn't wearing a ring, so she couldn't have sent a secret signal to Fatty to save her. When Ayn Rand reached the elevator, she realized that the man was chasing after her. She couldn't take the elevator, so she chose the stairs. The man was quick behind her. Ayn Rand took out her phone and called Jinrong. She wanted Jinrong to save her, and the call was finally connected. But it was another girl's voice. "Hello, Miss Lan. It's Chen Xiao. Jinrong's in the shower. We can discuss this when he comes out, but I hope you won't disturb us." He was with Chen Xiao? Although she didn't believe it, she really heard the sound of running water. When she was in danger, Jinrong was with another woman. Ayn Rand didn't have time to think about it. She could only hang up because her life was more important now. The man was about to catch his prey when Ayn Rand turned, took out a silver needle from her chest, and pierced it directly into his neck. She then shouted for help. "Help!" She wasn't strong enough, and after a bout of dizziness, she fell to the ground. When she finally woke up, she was already lying in the hospital. Her parents were by her side. She opened her mouth weakly. "Mom." Libro was a little excited to see her awake and hurriedly helped her up. "Ayn Rand, what happened? How did you faint on the street? I also detected hallucinogens in your body." Tingyang had a lot of questions to ask. "You should ask Aunt and Grandma. Aunt is the reason I became like this. How can she be so heartless to give me to a beggar?" Ayn Rand started to cry as she spoke. "What? Sister-in-law did this? This is outrageous. We must call the police." Libro was furious. No matter what, she was her niece. Even if they didn't get along normally, she couldn't do such an animalistic thing. Tingyang didn't expect it to have something to do with his mother. No matter how much his mother disliked him, she couldn't be so cruel to his granddaughter. She was worse than pigs and dogs. "Ayn Rand, don't worry. We definitely won't let this go. I've thought it through. Previously, I made you suffer because I was too weak. I didn't expect that my modesty had made your grandma use this as an excuse to make things worse. This time I won't hesitate. Don't worry, I'll get justice for you." Tingyang had made up his mind to draw the line with his mother. Previously, even though he wasn't satisfied with her, he didn't intend to sever ties. But now that he saw his daughter in such a state, he couldn't tolerate it anymore. "Does Jinrong know about your condition?" Libro saw that Jinrong didn't call or appear, so she assumed that he didn't know about it. "I didn't tell him, so don't tell him. I'm afraid he'll be worried." And then forced a smile. "Why are you so worried at a time like this? As your husband, shouldn't he care about you?" "Mom, I'll tell him myself, so don't worry about it." She looked at her IV drip, which was almost empty, and urged Tingyang to pull out the needle. Yan was a little anxious when she saw that she didn't receive any news. "Yan, did we fail again?" Sashimi was nervous. The beggar might not be able to defeat that brat. Yan didn't speak, and suddenly her phone rang. She thought it was the man that sent her a photo, but instead she received a call from Tingyang. "Tingyang, why did you call?" Yan said guiltily. "Don't you know that what you've done? Let me tell you, if anything happens to my daughter, I won't forgive you. You can just wait to be taken to prison by the police." Tingyang hung up and Yan's heart skipped a beat. Crap, Ayn Rand probably told her father about this, that useless thing. Yan was worried about the matter had been exposed. "What should we do? You have to protect me. If Tingyang gets angry, he'll turn against us." Sashimi forced a calm smile. "I know Tingyang's temper the best. He wouldn't dare to do something like that to you. Can he still do anything if I'm still around?" Hearing this, Yan felt more at ease. She knew that Tingyang was the most filial to his mother. Even though he was treated badly in the past, she had never seen him reject her. He probably wouldn't make things difficult for her this time. What a waste of good clothes. I even bought him a phone. But before he could do anything, she ran away again. Yan was unwilling. Chapter 441, Sent to Prison. I don't think you should deal with that girl again. Getting Jackson to marry honestly is better than anything. Sashimi was waiting for her granddaughter to lead a blessed life. When Jackson had just returned home, she looked at the two of them with a strange expression. Who are you to make decisions for me? I'm a person, not a tool for you to earn money. I won't marry that fool. Yanshan had been scolded, and now her daughter had such an attitude towards her. She couldn't tolerate it. You brat, do you think you can just say that you're not going to get married? You have to marry him no matter what. That's not up to you. Jackson didn't listen to her. She swung her arm and entered the house, closing the door behind her. She started to put away her things with all her might. Sashimi could hear that something was wrong. The child has a big temper. She was really angry. Jackson opened the door. It's Grandma. Let's discuss this. Jackson didn't speak to her. She was focused on packing her clothes and bag. She didn't have time to fold them neatly, as she just stuffed everything into her suitcase. She picked up another bag and placed her cosmetics and some important items inside. She couldn't stay here any longer. She had to leave. The moment she opened the door, she saw Zhao Shimi and her mother looking at her with wide eyes. You brat, you still want to run away from home? Where are you going with your luggage? Shi Yanshan snagged her luggage away. The person I'm going to marry isn't him. Didn't you agree to this marriage? Marry him then. Dad is in jail, so if you feel empty and lonely, you should still be able to give birth at this age. Jackson's words made Yu Shen so angry that her hand trembled. She couldn't help but slap her. You bastard! Who did you learn this from? By fooling around outside every day. How dare you speak to me like this? You're not allowed to go anywhere today. Tomorrow you will meet the Zhu family obediently and discuss the marriage. If you dare to cause any trouble, I will kill you. Shi Yanshan spoke harshly, with no trace of motherly affection in her eyes. Jackson didn't have a reaction, but her heart had turned cold. There wasn't any warmth in this house, so she might as well leave early. Yanshan, you didn't hit the child. We can talk this out. Sashimi was persuading when suddenly someone knocked on the door. Shi Yanshan walked over angrily and opened it. Who is so blind as to not see me educating my child? Why are you knocking? The few policemen at the door were confused. Is this Zhao Shumi's house? Shi Yanshan fiddled with the lock and turned back to look at Zhao Shumi. Old Mrs. Land nodded. Yes, what's going on? Someone reported to you being involved in a crime. The victim is lying in the hospital. Her parents have reported you. Please follow me to the police station for an investigation. The police showed them the arrest warrant. Zashimi stuck her head out in confusion and started to panic when she saw the police cars parked outside. What happened? Taeyang sued us, Mom. I don't want to go to jail. Shi Yanshan pulled Zhao Shimi's arm and said agitatedly. Zhao Shimi panicked. Was this unfiled thing going to send her to jail? Are you mistaken? We didn't do such a thing. We're innocent. Zhao Shimi continued to deny him. Then you'll have to come back to the police station with us to make things clear. If you are innocent, we naturally won't forgive the person who started the rumors. The police pulled up to them into the police car. I'm not going. I didn't do it. I didn't do such a thing. I was wronged, Shi Yanshan shouted. Jackson, save me. Save your mother. Jackson was a little confused. What was happening? No, let me go. Sashimi wanted to play dumb and stall so that she wouldn't go to the police station, but the police officers dragged her into the police car and took her away. Jackson, find your second uncle and ask him to come to the police station to pick us up. Shi Yanshan shouted as she patted the police car. Jackson watched as her mother and grandmother were taken away by the police with mixed feelings. She gradually put down the suitcase in her hand and slumped onto the sofa. She felt slightly relieved. She hadn't felt such a silence in a long time. She took a break and called Anran to ask what happened. Anran is in a hospital, contemplating whether to call Jinrong when Jackson called. Anran, what are you trying to do? Why did you make your father call to arrest Mom and Grandma? Jackson's tone was relaxed, but it was still questioning. Isn't that what you want? You're suppressed by your mother every day, and you should be able to relax now. Are you glad they're finally gone? I'm actually helping you. Besides, your mom went overboard with me. Shouldn't I send them in? Anran spoke unhurriedly and without any particular impatience. Yaxon admitted that she was slightly relieved, but it was too much for her to send her full family to the police station. It's not enough that you sent my father in, but you're sending Grandma and Mom in as well. Doesn't it mean that it's my turn next? If you want it to be, I don't mind helping you, Anne smiled and said. Yaxon hung up without a thought and left to find Ting-young. Anne didn't call Jinrong. It was Lee Yuro who personally visited the Mo Corporation to let Jinrong know that she was drugged. Jinrong, I didn't mean anything by coming here today. Since Anne married you, you should be responsible for her happiness and concern. When I saw her today, she wasn't happy, and I didn't want to mention your name. I don't know if the two of you fought. Ever since Anne was sent to the countryside, she lacked parental love, or anyone else's love for that matter. Since she is your wife, if you guys had a fight, you should give in to her. I know that you are busy with work and have a lot of things to worry about every day, but Anne isn't an idle person either. I hope you can empathize with her. Liu sat on the sofa with her bag and spoke tactfully. She saw that her daughter wasn't happy, so she went to find Jinrong to go and accompany her. Mom, we didn't quarrel. I don't know why she didn't call me either. Don't worry, I'll visit her later. Have you caught the person who drugged her? When Jinrong heard that Anne didn't look for him even when she was in danger, he could tell that she was angry with him. But he didn't know how he had offended her. Her father has called the police. It was her aunt and grandma who did it. Her father had thought it thoroughly this time. After all, no one could bear to be the one to send their mother to prison. Liu pitied her husband for having such a mother. It must have been difficult for Dad. Mom, don't worry, I'll take good care of Anne, Jinrong promised. Chapter 442, Confrontation. Liu nodded and stood up. I'll go back first. I have something to do in the hospital, so hurry and accompany her. She'll be fine after you apologize and get her some flowers. Liu didn't know what happened, but it shouldn't be a big deal. A girl should be coaxed gently. After Jinrong sent Liu out, he called Mo-san in. Investigate today's incident and find that man. I'm going to make his life a living hell in prison. Jinrong walked to the side, took his suit jacket, and walked out. The moment he stepped out, Chen Xiao entered. Young master, where are you going? She asked. Something happened to Anne. I have to go take a look. Jinrong wore his clothes, picked up his car keys, and prepared to leave. What could have happened to Miss Lan? Have you forgotten our appointment today? Chen Xiao asked. Another day. I really have something on today. You said that you would agree to anything I asked. Don't you want to repay the favor? Chen Xiao grabbed his wrist, wanting him to repay the favor. He promised Chen Xiao that he would accompany her no matter what she did today, but now that his wife was in trouble, he couldn't accompany another woman. I accompanied you this morning. I'm going to find my wife this afternoon. If you're still dissatisfied, we can arrange to meet again another day. Jinrong flung her hand away and walked towards the car. But Jinrong, is this how you treat your benefactor? Chen Xiao followed closely behind him. Mo-san, stop her. Don't let her follow us. Jinrong started the car and drove off. Mo-san held onto Chen Xiao's hand tightly. Miss Chen, you saved young master's life. He will repay you in the future. But he really has something going on today. Release your filthy hands. Do you think I don't have anything to do, too? Chen Xiao left in her high heels. She was going to the garage to chase after him. She wanted to see what illness Miss Lan had that made him so anxious. At the hospital, in the director's office, Yaxon wanted to ask Ting-young if he could forgive her mother. Yaxon, since you weren't involved in this matter, I won't bicker with you, but your mom and grandma went overboard this time. Her daughter's life is a life, but isn't my daughter's life a life too? Did she think about the rest of my daughter's life when she did this? She casually gave my daughter to a stranger, wanting others to humiliate and trample on her. She is married. So how is she going to show her face in the future? It is not up for me to decide. The details will be decided by the police. Ting-young was upset about this and had made up his mind. It wasn't easy to send his mother to prison. He had always condemned himself morally, but deep down he wanted to do so. You sent my father to prison and now you're sending my mom and grandma as well? You're too much. Yaxon felt sorry for herself. With such parents, she would be threatened and used as a punching bag. She ran out in tears. She saw Jinrong when she reached the door. She wiped her tears and walked out with a smile. Brother-in-law, sis, your mom was the one who did this, and it has nothing to do with you. I won't pursue this matter, but don't you dare touch her again, or I will never forgive you. Jinrong's hair was combed neatly. His face was grim, and even his voice was ice cold. Brother-in-law, this really has nothing to do with us. It was just a misunderstanding. Can you talk to second uncle and ask him to let us go? Isn't sis all right? The moment Yaxin said this, Jinrong glared at her fiercely. She could feel the thousands of arrows piercing through her heart. Do you know the biggest difference between you and your sister? Your sister is kind, but you aren't. You're not allowed to get close to her again. Jinrong walked towards the ward. Anran was reading leisurely in the ward. She looked up and saw the person who entered, but she didn't have the slightest change in expression. Anran, why didn't you tell me you were ill? Jinrong sat down and asked patiently. I realized that telling you about my illness wasn't going to be useful. Aren't you busy with work? Why do you have time to visit me? Anran flipped through the herb book absent-mindedly and spoke in a cryptic tone. Those things aren't as important as you are. If something happened to you, why didn't you call me? I could have saved you. I didn't know where I upset you. But you could just have said, and I would have apologized. Jinrong's voice was gentle and soft, completely unlike his harsh tone from before. Call you? I called you! During the most dangerous and difficult time, you were the first person I thought of, but you disappointed me. If you don't like me, you can tell me directly. There's no need to use such a method to humiliate me. I'm not as rich as Chen Xiao. She's the daughter of a bank president, and my family just runs a hospital. If you can't stand my kind, you have to look better at the pot while eating the food in the bowl. You can't throw away the food in the bowl and eat the food in the pot. Wouldn't that be better? You're not welcomed here, so please leave. Anran confused and wrong. He couldn't understand where this tone came from. What does it have to do with Chen Xiao? She is just my savior. I have no other feelings for her, Jinrong promised. You've already slept with her, and yet you're saying you don't have any feelings with her. If I didn't call you today, how long would you have kept it from me? You're usually a pretty good person, but everyone says that you don't get close to women. Does this you repay your benefactor with your own body? Anran was gentle when she was angry and didn't cause a scene, but Jinrong couldn't understand such gentle words. When did I sleep with her? Why didn't I know that you called me today? Jinrong picked up his phone and looked at the caller ID. Why are you still pretending? You can go back and accompany your little lover. Don't waste time here. Please leave. Right now. Anran pointed to the door angrily. Jinrong looked at his phone records. There was indeed one call, and it was from Anran. But he didn't receive it. What exactly was going on? Anran, let me explain. I really didn't receive this call this morning. I promised her today. In order to repay her for saving my life, I'm willing to have a meal with her. I went to the bathroom one way, and there was a fountain by the restaurant we were eating. I didn't lie to you. Jinrong couldn't explain himself now. Chapter 443, The Swan in the Hotel. Didn't see it. So, Chen Xiao answered the phone for you? Anran sneered. I really don't know. You have misunderstood me. Is it because you're jealous that you're behaving like this? Jinrong sat down and smiled calmly. You can still smile? You actually went to have a meal with Chen Xiao and didn't tell me. Since that's the case, why are you looking for me? You can keep her company. Anran was a little angry. She continued to look away. She flipped through the book absent-mindedly. Honey, I'm just doing this to repay her. I swear that I will tell you if I meet her again in the future. It was an accident. Don't be angry, Jinrong coaxed her. In fact, Anran wasn't really angry. She never doubted Jinrong's feelings for her. It was just that this time Chen Xiao had the upper hand and she wasn't satisfied. Who knows if what you said is true or not? She pretended to be angry and pouted as she sat on the bed. Jinrong caressed her small face tenderly. Of course it's true. If you still don't believe me, I'll get Chen Xiao to come find you, alright? Before Anran could speak, Chen Xiao came in with a smile. I wonder what illness Miss Lan has. Anran looked at Jinrong. Jinrong looked at Chen Xiao in surprise, his eyes expressing his innocence. I didn't bring her. Why are you here? Can't I visit Miss Lan? Jinrong hurried over just now. I thought something must have happened here. Miss Lan doesn't look well. What kind of illness do you have? Chen Xiao asked with concern. Miss Chen, don't worry. I won't die yet. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Anran smiled and said, Miss Lan, what are you saying? I'm not disappointed. I'm just a little regretful. I was thinking of finding a man like Jinrong to take care of me. Chen Xiao looked at Jinrong with a smile. Chen Xiao, Anran is alright. You can go back. No, Jinrong was displeased. This Chen Xiao must have followed him here. I'm glad that Miss Lan is alright, but Jinrong, you're busy with work, so why aren't you leaving? Chen Xiao said. My wife is everything to me. My job now is to take care of her. Do you have a problem with that? Jinrong looked up and asked. Miss Chen, I advise you to hide. Your father sent people all around the world to find you. You are very valuable now, and the news of the reward has been posted online. It's a 100 million tip. If I report you, I could have gotten this 100 million, but I don't lack money right now. But maybe when I'm in a bad mood one day, I might do it. Hanran spoke half-jokingly. Chen Xiao clenched her fists, her face turning green. Miss Lan, go ahead. We don't know if Dad will really be able to catch me. Should we give it a try? Hanran raised her phone and smiled. Chen Xiao was a little scared. Last time she had to run half a block to get rid of them. Oh right, I suddenly forgot. Last time, Miss Chen seemed to owe us some money. You haven't given us the 5,000 yuan for our meal yet. Hanran suddenly remembered that she owed her money. You, Miss Lan comes from a prestigious family. Don't tell me you remember such a small sum. She smiled at Hanran. Jinran didn't understand what she was saying. When did she owe her money? Miss Chen is from her prestigious family. Surely you can't afford to go back on your word. Hanran continued to mock her. I didn't bring my wallet. Maybe next time. She was a little embarrassed. She seemed very rich now, but she was in an empty cell. Her father had frozen her account, so she could only stay in Jinrong's hotel to eat and drink. How can she be rich? You should go back first. After all, your father is searching the world for you. Jinrong suggested. All right, I'll listen to Jinrong. I'll be back. Chen Xiao smiled and left. Annan threw the book in her hand aside in frustration. Annan, I really didn't know she would come, Jinrong explained. Chen Xiao was his savior, so nothing he said now was right. You didn't know? She's your savior, isn't she? Aren't you going to send her off? Annan spoke coldly. Annan, I was wrong. Don't be angry. I'll dance and make faces for you. In order to make Anran happy, Jinrong closed the ward door and started to dance. He copied it from the TV, stood on a tiptoe and raised his arm and danced to the little swan. He made faces as he did so. Annan had never seen Jinrong like this, but she couldn't help but smile. When he turned around, he saw Li Yuro and Ting Yang standing at the doors, looking at him in surprise. They had never seen Jinrong like this and found it hilarious. Jinrong retracted his arm in embarrassment. Mom, Dad, when did you guys get here? He didn't hear them at all. We just arrived. You can continue. Li Yuro wanted to leave, but Jinrong hurried forward with a smile. No, I have something to do with the company. I'll make a move first. I'll visit Anran later. Jinrong smiled. Okay. Ting-Yang lowered his head and suppressed a smile. Dad, why didn't you tell us you were coming? He was embarrassed. Anran reproached him a little. Does that mean you can accuse your father because you're married? Ting-Yang sat down and smiled. You child. Jinrong is a good child. Don't quarrel with him. You hear me? Yuro reminded him. Dad, have you thought about the matter with Grandma? Anran suddenly asked. Ting-Yang lost his smile. I've thought it through. I can't let your grandma hurt you like this again. In the past, I thought she was still my mother after all. But I have no choice now that she's so malicious. Hubby, I think you should visit Mom. The police station also wants a statement from the person who reported the incident. Li Yuro persuaded him. Ting-Yang nodded with his moist eyes. At the Mo family, Sheng Li was about to leave for the company when old Mrs. Mo stopped him. Where are you going? Mom, I'm going to grow mold if I stay at home and the stock market isn't good. I'm going to the company to have a look. Don't worry, I won't cause any trouble, Sheng Li promised. You have to stay here even if you're moldy. Don't think I don't know you were going to the company. Having caused enough trouble in the past 2 days, old Mrs. Mo walked out and said, Mom, I'm your son too. I may not be your biological son, but you can't be so biased. You only want your biological son's son to monopolize the company, isn't that right? I, your illegitimate son, can only watch from the sidelines as the company you rule prospers. Shang Li couldn't hold it in anymore. Old Mrs. Mo was furious. She had treated this son as her own and could be said to have devoted to him. How could he be so suspicious? You bastard, am I treating you poorly? How could you say such things? Which of the things you have done can be presentable? We would be making a fool of ourselves if outsiders knew about it. Others will accuse the Mo family of internal strife. I didn't teach my children well. Chapter 444, The Reason. You're doing this for your sake. Have you thought about me? I know that I'm an illegitimate child, so that's why you don't like me. You are happy that I disappeared all these years, right? And now that I'm back, you don't seem to like me. I won't go, okay? Shang Li spoke angrily and turned to go upstairs. Get out of here. Old Mrs. Mo was furious and her heart ached. She didn't expect her son to be like this. It was heartbreaking. I'll get lost. Shang Li came down again and left. Nanny Wu helped old Mrs. Mo up and said, Old Mrs. Mo, don't worry. Previously, you asked me to find someone to monitor Mr. Mo, and I've done so already. They're all following him, so it's all right. Nanny Wu spoke. Nanny Wu, how did I raise such a son? He's such a bastard. I treated him well with all my heart, and now he's so against me. Do I owe him? Old Mrs. Mo was heartbroken. Back when he fell at the sea, she thought he had drowned and cried for several days. She felt that she had let her husband down. Now that she thought about it, she really shouldn't have done that. Oh, Mrs. Mo, don't hurt yourself. Mr. Mo was just angry. Don't take it to heart. Nanny Wu comforted her. I don't think so. I don't know what this child experienced over the years, but he completely changed. I have seen now that he's that kind of person. Old Mrs. Mo cried. Old Mrs. Mo, how can a person not change after all these years? Let's not be sad. It's bad for your health. Nanny Wu continued to persuade her. I just don't think he's suitable to stay in the company. I didn't expect him to misunderstand me. He's so annoying. Old Mrs. Mo was exasperated. He was already an adult, and yet he was still throwing a tantrum like a child. How could she accept this? Quick, call Zhenrong and tell him not to let Shang Li enter the company if he goes there. I'm furious. Old Mrs. Mo, don't be angry. Go inside first. Nanny Wu helped old Mrs. Mo in. After Shang Li left the house, he didn't go to the office, but turned and went to the Qin family's house. Qin Hao was furious when he saw Shang Li. You still dare to come? Don't you know what has happened in the past few days? Of course I know. I'm here to solve the problem, Shang Li said. Go ahead, tell me your solution. Qin Hao sat at the sofa and looked at him angrily. Previously, Shang Li had promised him that once the cooperation was complete, the Qin family would find a reason to withdraw their funds and the Mo family would be severely injured. But now that Zhenrong wasn't signing the contract, they wouldn't be able to resolve this matter and would have to pay a large sum of money. Boss Qin, don't be angry. I think there is a chance for us to change. I know that you don't know this, but Ayn Rand is mine now. I can get her to take this out the seal and this matter will be resolved. Shang Li continued. Qin Hao rolled his eyes and spoke disdainfully. Ayn Rand is the young mistress of the Mo family. Why would she listen to you? I don't think people should be so confident sometimes. Qin Hao didn't believe it. Ayn Rand looked sharp and wasn't easy to control. Boss Qin, don't be anxious. Some things can't be resolved so easily. You have to give me some time, and after a while, you'll see me empty out the Mo Corporation. Qin Hao was doubtful of Shang Li's words. There's something I don't understand. You're from the Mo family, after all. Can you really do this? It is your father's lifelong work. Do you have a grudge against him? Shang Li was slightly taken aback, and he smiled. Boss Qin, there are some things that you probably don't know. The things that I experienced outside the family are things that others haven't experienced in several lifetimes. So I know what I want. The things that had happened between me and the Mo family are my private matters, so it won't be convenient for me to tell you, alright? Shangli clearly didn't want to talk about himself. Boss Mo, if you don't explain it to me, we can't cooperate. I can't trust you. The most important thing between us is trust and honesty, Kinhao said. Shangli thought for a moment and said, my family with the Mo family started when I was born. I was my dad's illegitimate child. Back then, my dad went to the countryside to meet my mom. Later, she gave birth to me before marriage, and my mom was labeled as a slut. I was despised until I was 10 years old. Later, my mom committed suicide due to depression, and I was taken to the city by my dad. Back then, my dad was already married and living with my stepmom. He also had 2 sons. I didn't seem to fit in back then, but she treated me pretty well. But I couldn't forget that my mother was abandoned by Mo Goshing. If he hadn't abandoned my mother, she wouldn't have committed suicide from depression, and I wouldn't have been mocked for being a bastard. No matter how good she treated me, it was all fake. Later, when Mo Chang-wen was born, he was weak and sickly. She was always busy taking care of him, giving him everything. She was so biased that she wanted to give him the drumsticks I got. I've been bullied by my 2 brothers since I was a child, and I've had enough. Later on, I grew up, and the second brother's children were born. I had to take care of their children too. They were my brother's enemies, and I had to take care of them. Don't you think it was ridiculous? Shangli was furious as he spoke. So you're taking revenge by your mother? Ken Hao guessed. Not entirely. I saw the pain of my mother's death with my own eyes. She hanged herself in front of me. That was my lifelong nightmare. Later, second brother and his wife passed away, leaving only a pair of children. That woman actually needed me to take care of them. The reason was that third brother was weak and sickly, but he could raise a large trash can by himself when the old lady wasn't watching. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Shangli smiled bitterly. This is too much. Kinhao added fuel to the fire. Later, I planned a huge scheme. I looked at the weather forecast in advance and knew that it was going to be a violent storm that day. So I told him to go to sea. I wanted to kill Jinra, but that day Nanny Wu suddenly appeared and disrupted my plan, so I only could escape. Later, I heard that Jinra had a high fever and lost his memories. I was glad he didn't remember, as I had always wanted to go back. But the family was joyous, and I couldn't see a trace of sadness from my death. I decided to leave and treat it as if I was dead. In the past few years, I've been running around the world and have done a lot of things. I've done part-time jobs, been hired as a thug, a delivery man, and set up stalls. I've done everything and suffered the contemptuous looks of others. I can't tolerate all of it. But when I think about how my mom was worse off than me, I want revenge. Why should I be treated unfairly? The more Shangli thought about it, the angrier he got. So you hate old Mrs. Mo? Then why are you doing this to the Kumo Corporation? Kinhao asked again. Chapter 445, The Person in Prison. If he purely hated old Mrs. Mo, he could have dealt with her directly, but there was no need for this. The Mo Corporation was founded by my father. I don't mind that he didn't love me at all, but this company must not fall into the hands of outsiders. Take Jinrong, for example. If I can't have the company, others can't either. Shangli wouldn't let Jinrong have everything in that company. It was painstakingly founded by his father and should be owed by him and his mother. Others shouldn't even think about it. Mr. Mo, I think you're too pitiful. I think I should trust you again. At least you are more sincere than Jinrong. I want to know how you made a name for yourself abroad all these years. You heard that he was a stockbroker and wondered if it was true. Didn't you know stocks? Foreign stocks are easy to learn. It's easier to understand than people, Shangli said. I see, Mr. Mo. What's your next plan? After all, old Mrs. Mo and Jinrong aren't letting you interfere with the company matters, so you do have a chance. Have you forgotten? Don't I have an important pawn? I'm here today to break Callan's... I'm here today to break Boss Kin's suspicions on me. I will take responsibility for everything I do. Don't worry, Shangli promised. I hope that Mr. Mo will keep his promise. The Mo Corporation has sent me an agreement. I will try my best to stall for time. I hope you won't disappoint me. Kinhao smiled. Of course. The two made a deal and Shangli left. Kin Taiyan had hid around the corner and spoke after Shangli left. Dad, can we really trust that person? Kim Tae-yan found him unreliable. When a person is forced into a corner, they have a strong desire to live and to take revenge. Shang Li had lacked love since he was a child and has always wanted to take revenge on his father. Now that his father is gone, the only ones left are old Mrs. Mo and Jin Rong, Kin Hao said. I think it's better to be careful after all. His surname is still Mo, Kim Tae-yan said. Son, it's not right to be careful, but don't be timid when you do things. Go and see Ayn Rand and see if Shang Li's words are true. Kin Hao thought that although Shang Li could be trusted, he couldn't trust everything. It was better to take a look. Got it, Dad. Kim Tae-yan had always wanted to see Ayn Rand. In fact, if the grudge between the two families weren't so great, he would have become friends with her and even improved their relationship. At the police station, Zhao Shumi and Xu Yanshan were locked up together. The interrogation was over and they were just waiting to be prosecuted. Officers, were innocent. Let us out. Xu Yanshan's hair was in a mess and she couldn't care less about her image. Let you out? Do you think you can leave after you confess? Besides, we caught the beggar. He admitted that you two were the ones who instructed him to do so. How dare you deny it? The policeman said as he held the baton. I've been wronged. What do you mean by confession? I'm suing you for maligning someone. Xu Yanshan's yelling frustrated everyone in the room. The fat woman with the gauze around her head in the corner suddenly kicked the table. What are you yelling about? You're here and yet you're still shouting. You're so annoying. She grabbed Xu Yanshan and said fiercely, Sis, I was wrong. Please, let me go. Seeing that she couldn't win, Xu Yanshan started to beg for mercy. Wronged? How did you get in here, then? The fat woman glared, looking very fierce. Let go of my daughter-in-law. Sashimi thought that the woman wouldn't dare to bully her since she was older, so she went up to stop her. This is the first time I see such a harmonious mother and daughter-in-law. Why don't you teach me how I can make an old woman bow to me? Look at the wound in my head. It was caused by my mother-in-law, and I killed her in a fit of anger. The woman smiled as she spoke. Xu Yanshan and Zhao Shimi were terrified. She's a murderer. I don't want to be with her. I want to go out. It's too noisy. I'll sew your mouth shut if you continue speaking, the crazy woman said bitterly. The two of them immediately shut up. Yanshan, why hasn't Yaxin found Ting Young to save us? That ain't great, Xu Yanshan cursed. Speak of the devil. Ting Young walked in and turned to see them. He's here, he's here, he's here. Sashimi was overjoyed. Mom, is he here to save us? Why don't I see Yaxin? Xu Yanshan saw that Ting Young had come in alone. Nonsense, I'm his mother. How could he watch me go to jail? Sashimi smiled and said, Outside, the police saw Ting Young enter and they asked, Are you here to make peace? Ting Young shook his head and spoke softly, I'm here to see my mom. The police gave him a form for him to sign. He then walked into the detention center and spoke to Zhao Shimi. Ting Young, hurry and save me. There's a murderer here. Zhao Shimi cried, which was rare for her. Mom, why can't you accept Ayn Rand? Ting Young cried. It's not me who can't tolerate her. It's her who can't tolerate me. After all these years, we were all doing well without her. The moment she arrived, the house was silent to chaos. The old house is gone, Tingy is gone, and our family is ruined. It's all because of her. Don't you realize that she's forcing me? Sashimi didn't realize the severity of the matter as she spoke. Mom, she's just 20 years old and has been in the countryside since she was a child. Can't you be more understanding? I already owe her a lot. Why can't you think of me more? Ting Young was troubled. Are you blind? You bastard. You must have been bewitched by her. Since when are you allowed to speak to me like this? Hurry up and save me. Sashimi didn't want to stay here any longer. Mom, it's obvious. I can't save you. The person has confessed. Ting Young's words confused Zhao Shimi. What do you mean? Are you going to send your mother to jail at such an old age? Xu Yanshan started to panic. Ting Young, don't be fooled. This is a serious matter. Mom, I can't let you hurt Ayn Rand anymore. You should reflect on yourself in prison. Ting Young's eyes were moist as he said this. Bastard, what do you think you're saying? I'm your mom. You're being unfile. How could I have a good life when I'm inside the prison? Are you hoping I'll die? Sashimi grew angrier. Mom, I just want you to calm down. Why should I calm down, you bastard? You're finished. If you dare to send me in jail, I won't have a son like you anymore. Taeyang didn't mind Zhao Shumi's harsh words today.